on your mother's side, your family heritage is Russian, though,
Russian, yeah.
not Ukrainian.
Yeah, they're Russian. I'm not proud of it, but it's the fact.
Do you have relatives in Russia?
I prefer to say I had, but not anymore, because I made a decision not to speak to them.
This is Josh Friedman in Odesa, Ukraine. Today is May 23rd, 2025. I'm joined by Yulia Melnik. Yulia, how are you doing?
It's going well, thank you.
Not always the best of times around here. Before we get into what we just heard, really quickly, an introduction. Yulia, you're a journalism student and you write on social media about the situation in Ukraine, and you have past volunteer experience during the war. Is that correct?
Yeah,
And is there any other way you'd like to introduce
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah, everything is okay. Yeah, really, I write for my social media about situation in Odessa, especially in Ukraine, about war.
Okay, well, we're going to try to focus on
Yeah.
Odessa in this video. Speaking of Odessa, we're in the center of Odessa right now, and about an hour ago, give or take, we just heard a couple explosions. The building that we're in was shaking. Do you know what happened, and would you like to describe briefly what you heard and felt and what this is like?
Yeah, okay, so it was air alarm before that, so it was a missile attack at that moment, and it was really, really loud. By 1 second, I was freezing with fear because it was really, really loud. Yeah, so it was scary for this moment.
It was it was certainly loud. Having spent some time recently in Odessa during the war, I've been hearing drones buzzing at night and the air defense being fired, Ukrainian air defense being fired at them. But I don't know how frequently missile attacks and daytime attacks are occurring in Odessa right now. Is this common, or is this strange that in the middle of the day on a Friday in the city center, there are a couple explosions like this?
You know, now on the third year of the war, we just used to it, so it's common situation. But for the past 2 months, I think it's not common situation. So today's situation was not common. We don't just have it usually, but we used to it.
There is a port nearby.
Yeah.
We're not sitting right next to the port, but we're in the city center, not too far away from the port. The port is often targeted. I don't know if that was the target today, but
Yeah, but it's usually under attacks, so it's a usual situation to hear some things near the port, near the city center.
okay, we're going to discuss not just life in Odessa during the war, but I think that you particularly have an interesting family background, family heritage, and I think it's an interesting opportunity to discuss the language issue, which often comes up during debate and conversations about the war between Russia and Ukraine. Ethnicity is very much a part of that as well. Would you mind telling me a little bit about your heritage, your family background, and go for it.
Yeah. My mother is from Russia. She was born in Russia, but came to Odessa in her teens, 20s, so about 25 years ago. But my father is from Lviv in Ukraine, so he's Ukrainian with his roots. My mother moved to Ukraine, as I said, a long time ago, so she switched to Ukrainian language, but now she speaks Ukrainian at work, but Russian at home. And I was taught Russian in my childhood, so I was speaking Russian all my life till the Russian invasion, when I was 16, and I decided to switch to Ukrainian.
At home, what do you speak?
Yeah, and now I'm speaking Ukrainian in all parts of my life, at home, at work, at studying. But it's not common situation because a lot of people speak Russian at home with their families, but Ukrainian in other parts of their life.
Does does your mother speak to you
And
in Russian or
my mother
Ukrainian?
speaks to me in Russian. So my parents speaks to me in Russian, and I answer them in Ukrainian. It's not common situation, but I do it.
So interesting, multiple reasons. Your father's from Lviv.
Yeah,
Lviv is Western Ukraine and
yeah,
very known for it being a Ukrainian
yeah,
speaking city.
yeah,
But your father from Western Ukraine
yeah, and
speaks to you at home in
Russian.
Russian.
Yeah, yeah.
You respond to him in Ukrainian. Your mother, who's originally from Russia, she speaks at home to you in
Yeah, yeah,
Russian and you respond to her in
yeah.
Ukrainian.
Difficult situation.
Is this common in 2025 in Odessa or in Ukraine?
It really depends from the region. So we live in Odessa, and they met in Odessa when they were about their 20s. And Odessa is city which speaks in Russian language. I mean, so when my mother moved to Odessa, everybody was speaking Russian. But she had to learn Ukrainian language because Odessa is a Ukrainian city. But my father was raising in Ukrainian family, in Ukrainian, culture and traditions. But when he moved to Odessa, he switched to Russian language. Also due to USSR nation, because that time Odessa was a part of USSR, and Russian was language of speaking. A lot of people was speaking Russian, so they both switched to Russian and communicate in Russian in all parts of their life. But after 1991, after Ukraine got its independence, they had to switch to Ukrainian. So now they speak Ukrainian and Russian in different parts of their life, but at home, Russian stayed like language of communicating between partners and children.
But you, if I'm understanding correctly, you made the decision to
Yeah.
switch at home.
Yeah, it
So
was.
were you were previously speaking Russian? You were
Yeah,
previously
yeah.
speaking Russian at home. And
Yeah.
how did you come to the decision that you were going to start responding to your parents in Ukrainian?
Yeah, it was really difficult decision, because I was speaking Russian for all my life, just like everybody else in Ukraine, in Odessa, too. So it was my principal decision to switch in Ukrainian. At first, I switched in communicating with my friends at university, job, etc. And uh, in about a half of a year or even a year, I switched to Ukrainian at home. So it wasn't at the same moment. I just didn't switch in 1 second. It was a really difficult decision. I need to think about it, and I just thought it was right. It was correct decision to speak Ukrainian in Ukraine during Russian invasion. I just didn't want to speak Russian while Russians kill us.
When exactly did you make the switch?
2 years ago. 2 years ago. So after Russian invasion, I switched to Ukrainian with my friends, and in different parts of my life, but not at home. And in 2023, after a year of Russian invasion, I switched to Ukrainian at home. So I need 1 year to make this decision to speak Ukrainian in all parts of my life. So now it's about 2 years. While I speak Ukrainian everywhere.
As you mentioned in the past, Odessa was predominantly a Russian-speaking
Yeah,
city.
yeah.
It seems like it largely still is that way, but a lot of people are making the switch. Right now, would you say most people are still speaking Russian in public in Odessa? What's the situation in
I
terms
think,
of
yeah.
the use of both Ukrainian and Russian?
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe Sergic as well, the mixture of the two languages.
Yeah.
If you could just try to explain what is the language situation in
yeah.
Odessa right now?
Situation in Odessa is really unusual because I think now it's about 50-50. Half of population, half of citizens speak Russian and half Ukrainian. In a lot of Ukrainian cities, people made the decision quicker, much more quicker. So now, for example, Lviv spoke Ukrainian. I think 90% of citizens spoke and speaks now Ukrainian. In Kiev, this decision was made quicker, but Odessa citizens need more time because of Russian propaganda, because of what happened there for the past 50 or 100 years. So now we are still in process. A lot of people still thinking about switching, still thinking about speaking in Ukrainian. So I think half of them speaks Russian, half Ukrainian, and really a lot of people speaks in Surzik, yeah, mix of languages.
When you say 50-50, you know, is this different in public versus at home and private?
Yeah, I think that half of Odessa citizens speak just Russian everywhere, or they speak Ukrainian at job, for example, at their work while they're working, and a lot of people just switch to Ukrainian, but not all of them. So it's common situation for us to speak Russian at home and Ukrainian at work, for example.
You're saying that the city as a whole seems to be making the switch. Are most people in Odessa willing, and do most people in Odessa want to actually switch to Ukrainian?
I think it depends on the age. So a lot of young people think that they need to do this switch. They have already done it, or they're going through it right now. So they try to speak Ukrainian everywhere. But people of 40, 50, 60, and above it, they just want to stay in this position. They just think that they don't. It's not necessary for them.
Internationally, there's a lot of confusion about the issue of ethnicity.
Ethnicity.
Yes,
Oh.
you have a very interesting case
Yeah.
because your mother is Russian, and is she fully Russian?
So she was born in Russia and lived there for 10 or 15, about 10 years. Then she moved to Hungary and then to Ukraine. So she's a Russian by passport, but not by heart, because she lived in Odessa in Ukraine for 30 years by now. 20 years, yeah.
Her on your mother's side, your family heritage is Russian, though,
Russian, yeah.
not Ukrainian.
Yeah, they're Russian. I'm not proud of it, but it's the fact, and it's very important to make this decision to become Ukrainian by your minds and your hearts, to learn this language, to become the part of this culture, and to move on in this country.
Does your mother
Yeah,
now
but
consider herself
yeah, but now
Ukrainian?
she's Ukrainian. Yeah, she considers herself as Ukrainian. She thinks that she is part of Ukrainian, big Ukrainian family. But by passport, she is Russian. Yeah,
Do you have relatives in Russia?
I prefer to say I had, but not anymore, because I made decision not to speak to them.
I've heard that quite a few times. If it's something you're not, I'm speaking with other people
Yeah.
who, during the war, who have relatives in Russia. If you're not comfortable with speaking about it, that's okay. We don't need you. Are you willing to share how you came to the decision that you're going to cut off
Oh.
communication with them?
Yeah, it was really difficult decision. We don't want to speak about it because we don't want to confess that part of us have some connections with Russians because of war now. But I made the decision, I think, during the first year of Russian invasion, during the first year of this war, because some of them just follow Russian propagandas. Some of them just really thinks that killing Ukrainians is for the best of, I don't think, of Russian or for war. They just really follow Russian propaganda. But some of them just don't want to talk about it, and they think that it's something they don't part of it. So it happens somewhere too far from them, and they just don't have connection. So I decided to don't speak to them anymore because also some things they said to me and my family in Ukraine was really rude and was awful things. For example, they said that Russians will came to us and free us. From who? I don't know from who, from some terrorists or what he's saying in Russian propaganda.
Is it common in
Yeah,
in Odessa
it's really
for?
common.
Well, I was going to ask for locals to have some relatives in Russia
Yeah,
or to have some
yeah,
Russian roots or partial
yeah,
Russian
yeah.
ethnicity, and how are people dealing with that now?
A lot of Ukrainians have connections and have some friends or their partners even of halves of their families, relatives in Russia. Due to we all were the part of USSR country and we all lived in on one territory, and some of our relatives just made decision to stay in Russia, and it's common situation here to have relatives there, but a lot of people make decision or made decision to just cut these connections and don't speak to them anymore.
Kremlin narrative is essentially that the the Ukrainian ethnicity doesn't exist, that the Ukrainian doesn't exist, that Ukrainians are really Russians. Where would you say things stand in reality in terms of differentiating ethnicities in Ukraine? You say that now, even though you have Russian heritage, you're fully
Yeah, I'm
Ukrainian.
Ukrainian. Yeah.
Is there such a thing as ethnic Russians in Ukraine? This has been a big part of the Kremlin's argument for the war, the invasion really dating back to 2014.
Okay, I got you. So, I think it's not true that there are ethnical Russians in Ukraine. We need to speak about what is ethnical in general. So people who understand themselves as Russians and live there for a lot of years, for centuries. Their families live there for centuries. No, I don't think so. What I want to say that, yeah, I got that part of Russian propaganda is saying that Russian soldiers came to Ukraine to save ethnical Russians here, but we don't have ethnical Russians here. We just have Russians, people who was born in Russia and moved to Ukraine, and we have Ukrainians. There is no one to save from, and save from who?
But you don't know anyone who
No.
in 2025 identifies as Ukrainian but ethnically Russian.
I know people who was born in Russia but moved to Ukraine for 10, 20 years ago, and now they think about themselves like about Ukrainians, so they are Ukrainians now, and a lot of them have Ukrainian passports, by the way. But I don't know people who live in Ukraine and who understand themselves as Russia and identify them as Russians and ethnical Russians. We all Ukrainians.
Right now, we're at a point where there have been ceasefire. In the recording of this video, there have been ceasefire talks. It seems like they haven't really gone anywhere.
Yeah.
As we just heard an hour ago, there's still explosions in the center of Odessa. I've traveled around the country and there are frequent drone attacks in a bunch of cities. Does it seem like the war might pause anytime soon? Are people numb to it? Does anyone even put thought so much here into the question of whether there might be a ceasefire or what might happen with the war? Do you have any thoughts about the direction that things are heading?
Okay, so we don't know when actually the war will end, but we believe that as soon as possible, and we just do what we could with all our minds and hands. A lot of Ukrainians was hoping on this situation between Ukrainians and Russians in Turkish. What happened? Not what happened not a long time ago. So some of us was hoping that it will move the situation on, that something will happen there. But as we see now, no. We just defend ourselves, we just live our lives and do what we can and hope that it will end as soon as possible.
Do you have thoughts on the possibility of a ceasefire? Are you okay with there being some agreement that brings the war to an end, even if it means loss of territory. If you don't want to answer the question,
No,
no
no,
problem.
I want to say that now there is a common idea that Ukrainians and Russians should stop the war, and Ukrainians should відмовитися from their territories. I mean, occupied territories right now, and Ukrainians should just say that okay, we'll let Russians, we give up and let Russians take them, and then we live our happy lives. But a lot of Ukrainians understand that we can't do it. We just can't do it because it will cause just that Russian in the future will take more and more territories, and just Ukraine will disappear. So we want to fight for all our people and all our territories, and we don't know exactly how many years it will take. Oh, of course, a lot of us hope that there will be some uh, dialogue, maybe, and that Russians will do something with this. But that not mean that it doesn't mean that we won't fight about it. So we will fight, and only after there won't be any moves on the front line, and only after that we will talk to them. So we need, first of all, we need to fight and then talk to Russians.
So are you saying you want Ukraine to fight until it takes back all territory lost, or you want yes,
Yeah, we want to,
like including Crimea?
yeah, concluding Crimea. It's interesting that Russians think that Crimea is part of Russia, but Ukrainians understand that Crimea is part of Ukraine, but it's territory of Tataran Crimeans. So it's don't our territories. It's just part of Ukraine, but it belongs to Tatars, Ukrainian, Crimean Tatars.
Okay.
Yeah. So we need all our territories back.
Okay. Crimea side, I think it's clear that you want Ukraine to fight until all territory
Will come
is
back
returned.
to us.
Seems like that will be challenging. Is that a common viewpoint here in Odessa? Are most people willing for the Ukrainian military to fight until all territory is returned, or do most people want a ceasefire? Do most people want the war to come to an end sooner?
Of course. All people want this war to come to an end, but we need to understand that we have to move to defend our territories. So a lot of people think that we should go on, and takes our territories back. But of course, all people want peace.
All right. Well, thank you very much for this conversation. Before you plug anything that you might like to plug, do you have any more comments about the situation in Odessa or the situation nationwide right now?
I just want to say for everyone who will watch this video, I would just want to ask to help Ukrainian army, to donate to Ukrainian army, to help Ukrainians, to speak about Ukrainians all around the world, because this war touches not only Ukrainians but everybody in the world. It's not just Ukrainians, Russian wars. It's war of all Europe.
Why is this Europe's war as opposed to just
because we all need to understand, and Europeans and Americans, so all world need to understand that now Ukraine defend not only themselves, they defend all Europe. And if Russia take Ukrainian territories, they won't stop. They just go straight and take European territories too. So Russians don't only want Ukrainian territories; they want war, and they want, I don't know, whole Europe and whole world.
Why would you say that is, that Russia wants to conquer other countries?
And a lot of people thinks this way because we understand that Russian won't stop. Just they want to kill. They want to continue this war. So they won't stop. And we saw this in history in 20th century and previous. Russians just want to occupy as much territory as possible for them.
Okay. Are there any links, social media accounts that you'd like to plug? Anything that you would like
I need United 24 will be enough.
Okay. If you have an account or anything that you want, I'll put it in the description of this video. Okay. Thank you very much, Yulia.
Thank you very much.
Дякую.
Дякую too.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I hope it's a quieter rest of the Friday today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Дякую.